Hi, this is Miss Andrea coming to you from a fabulous hotel room in New York City where I'm here to see some shows with my adult daughter. I'll continue the series on homeschool shade that are really questions in disguise and how we answer them. So let's go. This one is so a lot of people say in a really snotty way, it must be great to be able to homeschool. And so, besides being terribly rude and off putting, what they mean to say is, how can you homeschool if you don't have a spouse that can carry the financial load? Basically, they're saying, well, you're in a position to homeschool and I can't. And I've even had people say, well, it's not fair to kids whose parents can afford to homeschool that they do it because it leaves the other kids out. That's just another whole discussion. But basically, what they're saying is homeschooling is a financial privilege, and so it's not fair. And how can we make that happen? And I've written and I've written and I've written about this. Homeschooling is not about how much you have, it's about how much you're willing to give. It just is. Yes, a lot of homeschoolers jump into it more freely because there's financial, means in doing it. But I have had homeschool friends who've lived in trailers, and the family chose to stay in that trailer situation so that they could homeschool. Mom could have gotten a job, they could have gotten an apartment, like they could have gotten a very nice home, but they chose to stay in that more modest situation because the education was more important to their children than, their creature comfort. And that is a decision that some people make. I have friends who opted to continue living with their parents, divorced, single for whatever reason, decided to continue living with their parents so that their children could be homeschooled when they would have been much happier getting their own apartment and being solo parents. Excuse the sirens, like I said, I'm in New York. But they chose to be less comfortable in order to homeschool, both financially and to have, a couple of extra adults on hand. So there's that. I know a person who worked as a detective. She worked as a detective at night so that she could homeschool her child during the day. Nurses work like 3 12-hour shifts. I know nurses who work 3 12-hour shifts days so that they can homeschool the other 4 days. That whole idea that you have to have some kind of financial privilege in order to homeschool is a fallacy. What it is can you arrange your life in a way that homeschooling is possible? Can you step back in your comfort level so that you can homeschool? Can you arrange your work schedule so that you can homeschool? And if you can, then it must be nice that you're able to homeschool. This really sounds like an insult. It really does. But pull yourself together. Hold yourself together. Don't slap anybody. But what they do is they look you dead in the eyes and they say, well, I know someone who homeschooled their kids and their kids were a complete mess. They didn't listen. They didn't learn anything. Breathe, breathe, breathe. No slapping. You just look them back in the eyes, and you have to understand that what they mean is, how do you make sure your kids really learn? How do you wear both that parent hat and that teacher hat? Because they're not easy to combine. They're not. And you see it. Some parents are more interested in the relationship or so invested in the relationship that they pull back, on discipline and even when homeschooling. And it looks like the kids are running around, you know, acting crazy. I've learned not to judge though, because, in my travels, it's been many years, I have seen situations where I thought the parent was being way too easy on the kid. The kid was running a homeschool, you know, and I just thought, oh boy, you know, that doesn't look good. But what I've learned is that there are different parenting styles, and I've even seen this in different cultures. And so, what looks really foreign to me as a Black woman, to see children who kind of ignore the parent or who just kind of run wild, and the parent's just like, kids being kids, when, my reaction would be very different. I've followed these people, I've stayed in touch with these people, and I've seen these people as teenagers and young adults, and I'm like, well, that turned out way better than expected. So, like, don't judge someone else's homeschool style and don't judge someone else's parenting style, because you never know what kind of gentle parenting method they're espousing. You don't know what trauma that adult has had in their past that they're not going to put on their kids. You don't know what you're seeing. So basically, like I said, what people mean is, how do you make sure your kids actually learn? And the best you can do when someone makes this creepy behind statement is just give your point of view. As well, that's how they do it, and I'm not going to judge them. But what I do is, I've gotten our relationship to a place of trust and understanding. And with that, the children understand that if they don't do what I've asked them to do, they can trust that there are going to be repercussions. And so that's how we do it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about how we do it. Don't worry about how they do it. These kids are going to be okay. All right? They're an evangelical Christian homeschooling family, and they're very public, and everyone sees that their homeschooling is tied to their faith. We've also seen how things go, based on the things that have come out in the news. And so what they're really asking is, are you one of those homeschoolers? Are you an evangelical Christian homeschooler? And if you are, do you teach your kids, real science? Or do you, teach everything out of the Bible? Is the Bible your main textbook? And what do you say to that? I mean, so what I say is, there are many different types of homeschooling families. Many, many different types of homeschool families. You're going to find conservative Christian homeschool families, and you're going to find atheist homeschool families. Most homeschool families lie somewhere in the middle. Some closer to the evangelical side, some closer to the atheist side. But the ones we see in the news, tend to be extreme, because that's entertainment. And that's how that works. So I wouldn't say I was one of those homeschoolers. I wouldn't say I'm a Duggar type homeschooler. What I would say is, well, I am Christian and I do homeschool. I'm also liberal, and I'm also a rarity, or I was. These days it's getting more common because I am brown, Black, yes. So I am the kind of homeschooler that works for me and my family. That's what kind of homeschooler I am. We are also college-bound homeschoolers, which means our goal when we were homeschooling was to go to college. And so to go to college, we taught mainstream curriculum. We taught mainstream science. We taught mainstream ideas. Um, Christianity sometimes did tinge our homeschooling. Um, I remember my daughter reading, one year we gave her a series on mythology, and she just came to me and she said, "These are talking about gods, and this kind of grates against my sensibilities." And what I said to her was, I said, "Yes, but these are stories that you're going to run into a lot as you study, as you do school, as you talk to other people. Everyone knows these stories, and so you need to be aware of these stories so that when they come up, you're not just sitting there lost in the conversation." So she goes, "But okay, so when I write an essay on these, do I say, and this god and this god?" No, I said, no, you can say according to Greek mythology, according to Roman mythology. If it doesn't sit well with your values, you can still learn it because you put it in the bucket it belongs to. Um, so I believe in teaching science as it is. I believe in teaching religion as it is. I believe in teaching pop culture, fiction, Roman gods, Greek gods, origin stories of our world. I believe in teaching everything in the bucket it belongs in. We even say according to the Bible. We say according to this science philosopher, according to Einstein. We need to know all this information. We don't really need to burden the kids where it came from or how, true we think it is. So, yes, this is how and you, depending on the person and how aggressive they are, kind of dictates how much information you give, on how you actually had to study. But the main answer is, there is this kind of homeschooler and there is that kind of homeschooler. And most homeschoolers fall, in here. So please don't stereotype me because of that. And if you're interested in homeschooling, you can do it too, and you don't have to be one of those extremes. Okay, so until next time.